Well, hello there. It's your old pal King Krampus, and welcome to day 7 of 31 Days of Halloween with your pal King Krampus. Today's film does not necessarily crack my top 10 films of all time, but it is probably my favorite movie about Christian theology, and that is 1995's The Prophecy, starring Christopher Walken, Elias Koteas, Andreas Moteus, whatever the hell his name is, Casey Jones from the Ninja Turtles live-action movie, and Virginia Madsen, which is the second time Virginia Madsen has managed to be in one of these videos. Still have just shy of 20 more to go, so we'll see how many she ends up popping up in. I'm probably not going to include Dune, but that would be an easy one to notch into the scoreboard. Anyway, the thing I find interesting about this movie is that whoever wrote it did seem to catch on to something that is a feature of Christian theology and mythology, and that is when you actually look at how angels are depicted in the book, they're basically God's weapons, and not at all the sorts of beings that you would casually ever want to run into. Now, the prophecy is built on a conceit that there is a second war of heaven, following Lucifer's fall and his cohort of angels turned demons. A second group of angels, led by Gabriel, went renegade against the Archangel Michael and his loyalists over just kind of a basic contempt for humankind and resenting the fact that God had elevated us above them who are just his mere puppets and servants and gave us free will and yada yada yada. And Christopher Walken as Gabriel is hunting down the super evil soul from a Korean War vet who died recently, because he can use that to somehow like smash open the gates of heaven and so on and so forth. It's Gabriel, so obviously, potential apocalyptic shit's going on, since that's what he's supposed to be the herald of and all that. As far as role-playing game stuff, obviously it bears a lot of resemblance to some of the stuff going on in In Nomine, which was a French role-playing game that at one point had been adapted by Steve Jackson Games. I never got to run it or play in it back in the day, but, it was interesting. And without it and the prophecy, we probably never would have had Demon the Fallen, which kind of inverts what's going on in the prophecy, since the prophecy films are about angel versus angels, and characters like Lucifer are actually on the side of the good guys in their own way. Viggo Mortensen plays the devil in the prophecy. It's a very interesting performance. Also, one of the things that made me raise an eyebrow when I first was hearing about the Lord of the Rings movies back in the late 90s, before they ever came out in theaters, I had a lot of reasons to have trepidation about the Lord of the Rings, I felt. Hearing that Peter Jackson was directing them. I know a lot of people like The Frighteners, and it was alright, but to me, he was the guy who directed Meet the Feebles. And the idea that the guy who directed Meet the Feebles was going to direct The Lord of the Rings gave me tons of misgivings. And then they cast Satan from the prophecy to be Aragorn. And, as we've then saw several years later when they finally came out, all this actually worked out very well. But there's no way to know that ahead of time, and Viggo Mortensen playing the devil in the prophecy did lead to me having a little bit of hesitation about how I was going to feel about the Lord of the Rings and embrace them. I didn't end up seeing the Fellowship of the Ring in theaters, in part because of stuff like that and not really trusting Peter Jackson. I only saw Two Towers and Return of the King in theaters. I skipped work one day to see the Two Towers. Saw so many people at the theater I was heading by on the bus. I just got off on the next stop and went over there and just saw the movie instead of going to work. So I managed to get away with it. It's got a pretty all-star cast. It's a much more moving story than you might think. There's been an awful lot of movies that have come down in its wake, including its own sequels, that never really quite seem to capture the exact same lightning. Although not all of them have been bad. But they're just still in the prophecy's shadow, in spite of the fact that it wasn't the highest of budget movies, and it can be uncomfortable in a few times. It's weird, especially when you stop and consider that all the angel characters are hermaphrodites. Anyway, let's check it out, and we'll talk about it some more on the backside. does have some rather fun cameos from the Hebrew Hammer, I don't know the actor's name, and Amanda Plummer, Christopher Plummer's daughter. She's also in Pulp Fiction at the same time. I do like the subtle effect of having all the angel characters tend to perch on the back of chairs like birds and not sit down like normal human beings. Just good little world building ticks that they never stop and explain. You just have to realize that's what's going on. And Virginia Madsen sure was pretty, although I prefer her with blonde hair. They have her as brunette in this one. I mean, whatever. Not that I have anything against brunettes. I am myself a brunette, and I'm married to a brunette. But for her, I thought she looked better as a blonde. It is also interesting that this all comes to a head on an Indian reservation. I think maybe Navajo. I don't remember if the movie actually says specifically, so it could also be Pueblo or Ute, but I think Navajo. Alright, and there you have it. Now, unfortunately, I myself wasn't terribly fond of either of the Prophecy sequels, in part because they brought Gabriel back, which, he was destroyed by Lucifer at the end of the first one. And, I don't know, whatever excuse they came up with, I only kind of vaguely remember watching the second one. I don't really remember it at all these years later. It was a long time ago. Something I saw on, the Sci-Fi Channel on the afternoon with commercials and shit, so who knows what was missing from the edits that were left on the floor and all that for making it television appropriate. They're not terribly gory. There's nothing very obnoxious about them. As I said, there's been a lot of movies since this came out that, whether they would admit it or not, are kind of living in the Prophecy's shadow. And a few games out there, they're much the same. In my own Girls Gone Vampire setting, one of the vampire factions is kind of based as a nod on the Angels of Prophecy, because they don't realize they're vampires because none of them have drank blood yet. So they all think that they're fallen half-angels or something who've been reborn as mortals and, grow angelic wings at night, not knowing that if any of them ever were to, drink the blood of the living, that would cause them to mutate a bit more and they would realize that, they're not angels at all. And you can check that out on Girls Gone Vampire. But anyway, as to whether or not I recommend the Prophecy, very much so. Like I said, it might not be quite in my top 10 movies of all time, but there's a lot of steep competition to be able to actually make it on that list, so I don't think it quite gets there. It's easily a top 50, and like I said, it's probably my favorite movie interpretation, playing around with aspects of Christian theology that you'll find out there, and it's been an influential movie, and it's got a good cast. I mean, all around, it's not a bad pick. You can find it on Amazon Prime right now and watch it yourself. So until tomorrow, when we go over another film for 31 Days of Halloween with your pal, King Krampus. Be sure to hit like and subscribe, leave a comment below, hit the hype button, ring the bell, do all the little things. Just mash your keyboard and hope for the best. And check out links below to support the channel by buying yourself a book. You'll see an ad for something here in a second. as you're probably accustomed to by this point if you're a regular viewer. And so, after all that has been said and done, until next time, stay crampinated!
First of all, what went through my mind is how stupid am I to actually volunteer for this. It was unbelievably painful.